Navigating difficult dialogues. I'm sure you would already be feeling quite inspired, having heard a lot of perspectives on the matter. Why are difficult conversations so difficult? Science says that our brain releases a stress hormone called cortisol, the same hormone that our brain would release if we got into a physical fight with somebody. No wonder we avoid the unpleasantness and we bury our head in the sand like an ostrich would. That's why it's called ostrich effect, by the way. And hope that our problems will go away. Unfortunately, that never happens. And we have to take the bull by the horns. I'll bring in my perspective on this in form of 3 short stories, which are very close to me. The title of these 3 short stories will be From Fear to Freedom. Fear, as all of you know, is hard-coded emotion in all of us, which helps us survive. But we also know that a lot of people overcome fear and accomplish great things in life. And they're called heroes. However, there are some unsung heroes also in our life. People who we know, right? Who are near, close to us. Maybe not as well known, but they're extremely courageous as well. So let's hold that thought and go right into my first story. My first story is about a young man called Puneet. Puneet is straight out of college, like a lot of you here. He started his career. He's determined to make a mark in his career, working hard. He wants to get his career to a flying start. Now, Puneet's manager, however, is a very stern man. He's a middle-aged, overbearing guy who wants to make sure that everybody works really, really hard for their bread. Puneet has a situation at home which he hasn't shared with most of the people at work because he thinks it will be a disadvantage for him. Now, the situation is that he has a father who's ailing. He has a degenerative disease which confines him to the bed. And more often than not, when Puneet goes back, he has to take care of his father, sometimes getting up multiple times in the night, administering care as well as medicine to him. Very soon, this pressure cooker situation arises, wherein Puneet finds himself torn between both the worlds. On one side, there are ever-growing demands of his manager. He wants to do good. See, he is the only breadwinner for the family. On the other side, he also wants to play a good role as a responsible son. Something had to give, and it did finally, when Puneet finally hit rock bottom, and he had no option but to confront despair. He decided one fine day that he'll have a good conversation with his manager and tell him his situation, and that he can no longer put extra hours or work on weekends because of this situation. One fine day in the morning, he books a one-on-one with his manager, walks into the meeting room. The manager is already sitting there, looking as stern as ever. I'm sure you would have seen such people in your life as well, people who are very, very stern and overbearing, who have an intimidating effect on you. Yeah? So he walks in and he sees, unblinkingly, his manager is sitting there and looking at him. He goes humbly and tells his story. He says, "Sir, I have a situation at home. I can't work extra hours because I have to take care of my father." The manager looks at him with penetrating gaze. He is hardly batting an eyelid. And the meeting gets over maybe within 2 or 3 minutes of starting. Puneet gets out of the meeting. He has a very negative feeling. He knows that probably he is going to lose his job and things are going to be worse than when they were when the meeting started. However, there is work to be done, so he gets to his work throughout the day. He's packing his bags in the evening to go back home, and he's suddenly accosted by his manager, a large, overbearing, hefty man, intimidatingly walking towards him. And Puneet gets really scared. However, the manager comes near him, puts his arm around Puneet's shoulder, and says to Puneet, "Puneet, I understand exactly how you feel. I lost my father to cancer 2 years ago and I couldn't take care of him. Please take care of your father. This is the best thing that you can do at this point of time. Don't worry about work. I'll make sure that you have no bother as far as work is concerned. Tears well up in Puneet's eyes. He is feeling so relieved that he's understood finally. Yeah? And he's thinking to himself, he is glad that he had this conversation with his manager. He took this chance. He overcame his fear and had this conversation. Puneet was happy. Puneet was free. Okay. So now let's get on to my second story. My second story is about a gentleman called Khalid. Khalid is a mid-management professional in his mid-30s. He works for an organization. He handles an entire department all by himself. His job is to get business, operationalize it, and also make it profitable. With the same intent, Khalid signed a large portfolio account and large MNC at a very aggressive price point, thinking that in due course of time, it will become profitable and it will add a lot of value to his business. 3 months down the line, he is looking at the P&L, the profit and loss account, and he sees that they're losing money on this account. The costs are going higher, there is no revenue. And he's scratching his head, how can he make this better? So he does some tweaks. He does some earning management, he does some cost cutting, and he again observes it for another couple of months. However, the situation has not improved at all over the next couple of months. In fact, it has become only worse. They have even become lesser profit making than they were 3 months ago. Now this leaves Khalid with no option but to have a conversation with the customer and ask for a service charge raise. It's a very difficult conversation. He signed the contract on the terms. He knows that if he goes back to the customer is going to tell him that you signed this contract, please honor it. But what has to be done has to be done. He takes a flight to Bombay, walks into this meeting. Senior leadership team of the customer are sitting there, and the meeting starts as expected in a very cold fashion. It seems that these people already know why Khalid is there. And Khalid starts his discourse, tells them that this is what is happening. We are not making any money with this account. We love to work with you, but we also have to make it sustainable. To which the customer senior leadership says that you're the one who signed this contract. Please honor it. In fact, they even go on till the extent they threaten him. They say, if you don't honor this contract, we'll not only cancel this contract, but we'll also blacklist you for the rest of your life. Now Khalid again makes a try. He says to them that, please, if we can make this work, it will be great. We really look up to you. You are our best customers. Unfortunately, this is not a profitable venture for us. But as the meeting ends, tension is palpable in the room. He knows it's not going to go in the right direction. However, he flies back to Delhi and resumes work. 2 days pass. No news from the customer. 4 days pass. No news from the customer. The only thing that is increasing at this point of time is the stress that Khalid has, because he has to figure out a way in which he can compensate for this large account. 7 days go by. No news. 8th day, one of Khalid's team members walks up to him. The signs are ominous. Khalid thinks that he is the bearer of bad news. But suddenly he notices a smile on the face of his team member, and his team member says, "Sir, we got an email from the customer. They not only increased our service charges, but also extended our contract for 3 years." Khalid was overjoyed. It was almost like a huge burden was lifted off his chest. Khalid was glad that he had this difficult conversation. Khalid was free. Now to my final story. My final story is about a man called Raj. Raj is a senior leadership professional. He works in a large MNC. He commands a team of 200 people. It's a thriving organization. It's growing. Things could not be better, frankly. And then COVID hits. Like most of you here, COVID impacts Raj and his organization adversely. There is hardly any way to sustain because there is no revenue getting generated, right? One fine day, there is a leadership meet which happens, and it is decided that 50% of the workforce will have to be let go to sustain operations and to make sure that the organization survives beyond COVID. Following the same logic, Raj's team of 200 people, 100 people have to be let go. Now see, this is a very difficult conversation. These people have been with you through your thick and thin, through all the success that you shared. You also have an emotional investment in them, right? So it's a very difficult conversation to have. However, Raj goes back to his core team of 6 people. He has a conversation and he says that, see, this is what will have to happen if the organization has to survive. Raj's team is also disappointed like him. They don't understand what has to be done, right? It's a tough conversation. Who would like to give a pink slip to somebody they work with closely, right? And however, it has to be done. So it is agreed that the next day, everybody, the 100 people who are adversely affected would be gathered on a virtual call and this news will be broken to them. Raj has a different thought process though. He thinks that this should be done in a slightly more sensitive fashion. So he says, however long it takes, let's have these conversations separately with all these 100 people. We will talk to them separately, we will apologize to them, and we'll tell them the situation. So over the next 3 days, Raj and his team has conversations with each one of these 100 people. Raj personally apologizes to all of them, says that he's sorry that this had to happen to them. He promises them that they will be the first ones to come back if business returns. He also promised, along with his team, that if there is anything that he can do personally to make sure that they sustain the COVID period, he will be happy to do that. Now 3 days have gone, all these 100 calls have happened. Raj is reflecting on what happened over the last 3 days. Raj was met with a lot of emotions during those last 3 days. Sadness, despair, disappointment, tears. But there is one emotion that he was not met with, and that was of resentment. So Raj thinks to himself that this difficult conversation had to be had, and he's really glad that he was a part of this conversation, although he was saddened by the whole situation. So Raj was relieved, Raj was free. Now what happens? The story is not over. COVID goes on for another 1 year. Raj joins another organization. And here he tries to reach out to some of the people who were negatively affected during the COVID period in his previous organization. And he offers them a job which they gladly take. He hires around 15 people from his previous organization and they were very happy to work with him. Alright, so these are my 3 stories. What are the key takeaways? What I've taken away from these stories personally. 1. True to the theme of this talk, we have to embrace difficult conversations with courage. Unless you have these conversations, you will never succeed. 2nd, you need to be sincere when you have these conversations. You should not have any hidden agenda when you have these conversations. 3rd, you should be humble. Show humility when you have these conversations. 4th, show empathy. At the end of the day, it is mutual win-win that we are trying to strive for, right? And 5th, last but not the least, take responsibility for what you do. So these are the 5 takeaways for me. Now these stories are extremely close to me. In fact, they have shaped the way my career has progressed over the last 25 years. These people are also extremely close to me. So look at the board here. Thank you very much.